So we're going to talk about a kind of organic compound called a carboxylic acid. These are all examples of carboxylic acids. And so what you should notice about all of these, if we color in the atoms here, remember hydrogens are white, carbons are black, and oxygens are red. And if we color those in here, you'll see that with all of these oxygens and carbons and hydrogens, that the group that all of these have in common is this COOH group. So there's a C double bond O attached, and then also attached to the carbon is an OH group or a hydroxyl group. And so this group, I'm circling all of the carboxylic acid groups. Citric acid is known as a tricarboxylic acid. Oxalic acid is a dicarboxylic acid, so you can see there's two COOH groups connected to each other. The rest of these are all monocarboxylic acids. So acetic acid is the most common weak acid that we talk about. You're going to be doing a titration of vinegar later in the semester to determine the amount of acetic acid in vinegar. And so it is probably the most popular weak acid that we give you in calculations and in the lab. We also used formic acid in our light bulb demonstration. So again, oxalic acid is a dicarboxylic acid, citric acid is a tricarboxylic acid. So whenever that functional group, COOH, is attached to any general R group, we use R as a generic group in chemistry to denote any kind of sort of carbon-hydrogen group. The COOH group is what makes this compound a carboxylic acid. This hydrogen is the removable or labile hydrogen, or acidic hydrogen is another word for that. And so the conjugate base of this group would be R with a COO minus. So if we circle all of the labile hydrogens, these hydrogens over here on acetic acid that are connected to carbon are not removable. They do not come off. That's also true for the one attached to formic acid, the one in dark in black. This orange ones that I'm circling here are all the removable hydrogens. Any other hydrogens you see are not removable. So I circled all the not removable hydrogens in blue. Generally, carbon doesn't like to get rid of its anything attached to it. So the removable proton is within the COH group. It is not a part of the R group, ever. The next kind of organic molecule I wanted to talk about are the molecules that we've already sort of briefly introduced as weak bases. Ammonia is an example of an amine. And so if we look at the different examples from your textbook or from other places of amines, these are all amines. And what you'll notice that all of these have in common is they all have a nitrogen, that's shown in blue, with three attached groups, three bonds to the nitrogen in each case. All right, so you see the nitrogen, and each nitrogen has three bonds to it. And it also has a lone pair of electrons. So you see the nitrogen is important, the three attached groups, 1, 2, 3 bonds. And then there's a lone pair of electrons, which I'm also highlighting here in kind of this orangey color. Often the word amine is a part of the name. That's not always true. So amine has a nitrogen atom with three bonds to it. I'm just going to put general R groups. Remember, those are just generic groups. They could be anything. They could be hydrogen, they could be CH3s. They vary. Okay, it could all be part of one ring structure, actually. All amines have a nitrogen with three bonded groups plus a lone pair of electrons. That lone pair of electrons is why it is a base. That lone pair really wants to have a hydrogen ion attached to it. And so that is why it tends to be basic. It tends to take a hydrogen ion that bonds to that nitrogen where that lone pair is. So in all of these examples, these are all like ammonia. Each nitrogen has 3 bonded groups. One, if you just consider that an R group, this hydrogen is another R group, this hydrogen is another R group. That's 3 attached groups and 1 lone pair. Each one has 3 attached groups and 1 lone pair. Here you have 1 big R group, 1 attached group. That hydrogen's another one, that hydrogen's another one, and there's a lone pair that weren't drawn. So here are some examples of other amines where you see the nitrogen with 3 attached groups. The nitrogen is shown in blue. The last thing I want to talk about is amino acids are compounds that you've learned about in biology, and they are also relevant to biochemistry. Amino acids are the monomeric building blocks of proteins, which are polymers, biological polymers that our body makes to do various things like serve as enzymes or structural proteins. So the monomeric units in a protein are called amino acids. This is the general structure of an amino acid, where the variable group on the amino acid, there are 20 common amino acids, and they all vary based on their side chain, which is the R group listed here as just R, which remember is a generic group. Amino acids are called amino acids because they have an amino group or amine. You see there's a nitrogen there with 3 attached groups, which means it has a lone pair of electrons, which are not shown, but are there. And then there is an acid, a carboxylic acid group, COOH group, that is also attached to that central carbon, which is called the alpha carbon. Traditionally, what will actually happen in solution is the amino group will actually serve as a base, like we've learned that amines like to do, and it will take a proton from water, and it'll actually be an NH3 group with a positive charge. And the acid group will actually donate its proton to water, so it will actually exist in aqueous solution as a COO minus group.